Manna Greene. I'm the Environmental Director for Hudson River Sloop Clearwater, and I came down here today. It's from Rosendale, which is about 80 miles away, but it is still within the 50-mile peak injury zone of Indian Point. And I have two sons that live in New York City, and New York City would rapidly become gridlock if there was a serious accident or incident at Indian Point. I'm very, very concerned about their ability or anyone's ability to evacuate. It just wouldn't happen.
My name is Haight. I'm Senior Environmental Associate with the New York Public Interest Research Group, NYPIRG, which is a statewide nonprofit environmental and consumer advocacy group that actually is run by college students. Our board of directors is comprised of college students who are elected from our 20 chapters around the state. And I think it's really important for young people to get involved and learn more about this issue. I myself first learned about the dangers of radiation and nuclear power plants when I was a teenager, living not too far from where we're sitting right now, when 3 Mile Island melted down, and that was in the late 70s. And of course, not too long thereafter was Chernobyl, and it was then that I learned about the Indian Point reactors so close to New York City. You know, people don't really think about it, but we're less than 35 miles right now from the Indian Point reactors. We're within that 50-mile evacuation, not evacuation zone, we're within the 50-mile peak injury zone. It would be impossible to evacuate this area. It's just simply impossible. And so I think this has been the Japanese disaster that's still unfolding before our eyes. Has been a real wake-up call for this generation of college students to learn about the hazards of nuclear radiation and the dangers of nuclear power and why we need to switch to safer, renewable energy sources.
You know, Indian Point is approaching 40 years. The two reactors are almost 40 years old. They were built to last 40 years, and now they're trying to get a license extension for another 20 years. But they've had very, very serious problems, steam boiler ruptures and severe leaking into the groundwater under the plant of radioactive material. And that is seriously affecting the ecology of the Hudson River. But if anything more serious were to happen, they've had transformer explosions, a horrible track record. And you don't give an old jalopy an extension for another 20 years without putting at risk the population of the entire Hudson Valley.
And nuclear power has never been safe. I mean, that's been the big myth of nuclear power being safe. But we live in a more dangerous world today than ever. We have the danger of terrorism. And imagine if after on 9/11, those terrorists had used Indian Point as their target as opposed to the World Trade Center. I mean, it's hard. We still have trouble grappling with what happened 10 years ago, but I don't think we can even imagine what it might have been like in that case. We have the issue, as Manna was saying, about these are older plants now. They're aged. As they age, they're more prone to breakdown and failure, to cracking. They should not be cranking away. We should be working on shutting them down. And there's the issue of the nuclear waste, the high-level spent fuel stored at these sites. They were never designed to store high-level waste. It's just that there's no repository to take them to, so they just build up and build up and build up. And you know, one factoid which I like to tell people is how spent fuel is a misnomer, because actually the waste fuel is 1,000,000 times more radioactive than the fresh fuel rods that they put into those plants. That's all just sitting there. Much higher levels are being stored in Indian Point than in Fukushima, and as we all saw, that was a big part of how that accident escalated and got worse and worse. So these are things that every New Yorker needs to know. And the major point of this rally, outside of Governor Cuomo's office, was to send the message to our elected officials to shut it down, replace it with clean energy, and keep on sending that message until they do it.
You know, one other danger that I think people should be aware of is the fact that Indian Point is located at the intersection of two possible earthquake faults. And, you know, the disaster that happened at Fukushima is a very clear warning, but our Nuclear Regulatory Commission so far is not heeding that warning and is moving in the direction of relicensing these plants, as they have almost all of the plants that have applied for 40 years, for 20-year extensions. It's an unsafe situation in a world where we have an incredible economic opportunity to transition to a green energy economy, which would create jobs, have a multiplier effect, and make our world safer within the 50-mile zone and really everywhere. The environmental awareness in New York City and in the Hudson Valley makes it a place that is ripe for such a transition. And there are funding mechanisms and there are incentives, and we're in the process of developing a plan to bring to the governor and to New York State to make the Hudson Valley a model for this amazing transition to a green energy economy, so we can do what they've done in Germany, where they've shut down their entire nuclear fleet because they were prepared with high levels of energy efficiency and renewable energy, wind and solar. We can even capture the power of the tides in the Hudson and do it safely, and start to create a world that is a sustainable place for us and for the future.
Thank you.